ecosystem. Each speaker will be sharing their insights on how fintech solutions can make healthcare more inclusive and accessible to everyone, followed by a panel discussion where exciting topics will be discussed among the panelists.
This is the first ever edition of the Inter-School FinTech Challenge, a FinTech competition for students across various institutions in Singapore. IFTC is conceptualized and organized by National Junior College in partnership with FinTech Academy. This event seeks to help learners understand more about various innovative technologies that drive transformations in businesses and in the finance industry. This year's theme is FinTech for Good, Sustainability and Inclusion.
The emergence of fintech innovations and fintech startups have pushed traditional financial service providers to relook at their processes and redefine their operations. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, with social distancing requirements and lockdowns becoming part and parcel of our lives, many are seeking the use of technology to meet their needs and wants through online transactions.
In the long run, how can we ensure that the efforts done in fintech are sustainable to both people and the environment? How do we use fintech to ensure that these innovations reach people from various demographics, especially the underserved? Today, we'll be focusing on how fintech can revolutionize the current healthcare industry model with various instruments and how it can allow more people to access and afford healthcare.
Now, let's hear our opening remarks from Dr. Lilian Koh, CEO and founder of FinTech Academy. Dr. Lilian Koh is the founder and chair of the FinTech Academy in Singapore, which spearheads talent development programs and certifications for FinTech in collaboration with universities. She is advisor to the Institute of Blockchain Service and also the director of the Center for Research and Innovation at NTU ITIF, a spin-off of NTU, and was also the chair of the Center of Financial Education. Dr. Koh is also the editor and co-authored of Singapore, the FinTech Nation, one of the first books about Singapore's financial technology journey, and also the first international handbook of financial literacy by Springer. Let's hear from Dr. Koh.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Lilian Koh, founder of FinTech Academy. Health is wealth. So today, I'm very pleased to be here at the inaugural panel where we are introducing wonderful knowledge partners who are here to talk about healthcare and especially FinTech. So today we have this event which is organized by Youth for Youth. We're going to talk about how FinTech can be an enabler for health issues like patient journey and outreach for affordability and accessibility. We are also excited to look at innovations in this space to address some of the pain points in healthcare. As we continue to emerge from lockdown living, the developments that motivate us to pivot and manage in uncertain times, innovating, yielding financial returns by being opportunistic, and by looking at how this trend continues to play out. And this is why people's health, wellness, and experiences must be at the center of our decision making. Health technology innovation solves critical problems and saves lives. But even the best inventions are useless if they don't reach the patients and providers who need them. Health technology innovation solves critical problems and saves lives. And all these amazing opportunities for innovations in healthcare is going to unfold. So it will make a difference on relevant issues that affect people's quality of health if all of us put in concerted effort effort to see that this is implemented. So in this session, we would like to discuss various perspectives on shared value creation, meaning how we address unmet social needs through business models and initiatives that also ultimately contribute to the commercial success of a healthcare business without compromising standards in delivery. We are so honored to have Dr. Monica Mittal from Assess Health and Mr. Chua from Port Technology, who will enlighten us and show us how COVID-19, being a crisis, pushed us to rethink how we measure value and effectiveness in healthcare. So, in healthcare, we often talk about the iron triangle: quality, accessibility, and affordability. So we are going to look at some of these issues, and we'll like you to sit back, listen, enjoy what you have newfound knowledge from our knowledge speakers here. At the same time, participate actively to ask questions. Stay curious and continue learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ko, for your enriching speech. Kickstarting our Insight segment is Dr. Monica Mittal, an innovation lead at Access Health International. She's a seasoned business professional with over 7 years of experience, spanning strategy, business development, and technology across entrepreneurship ventures in Singapore and Southeast Asia. While Dr. Mittal is a medical doctor in practice, she's an entrepreneur at heart. She brings strong expertise at the intersection of healthcare, business, and technology into her various projects. Dr. Mittal has also built extensive networks in healthcare, insurance, and startup ecosystems in Southeast Asia. She is currently working as an innovation lead at Access Health International, which is a non-profit think tank with a mission to improve access to high quality and affordable healthcare for people through the integration of FinTech and InsurTech. Let's hear from Dr. Monica Mittal. Dr. Mittal, please.
Thanks, Edward. Thank you for so kind words. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to share my journey and my thoughts here on FinTech for Health. And I'm glad to see so much interest in FinTech and healthcare to bring patient accessibility and affordability. And as you have already shared a lot about my journey, I would not go too much into my background and my introduction. And if any one of you are keen, I would love to share more. I would like to share a lot more on FinTech for Health FinTech Health. So today, when you currently I lead as Edward mentioned, I lead FinTech for Health domain at Access Health International, and the project is in 6 markets, and we have been doing this for past 3 years now. So how do we define FinTech for Health, and why is it necessary? In terms of definition, we define it as bringing digital financial technologies to healthcare ecosystems so that people can pay and afford for their healthcare services. But what does this mean? This is so complex. So let me give you an example. Today, when you go on any e-commerce website and you intend to buy anything about $200, you are essentially given a choice at checkout to buy now, pay later, or a 0% EMI. Think about this in healthcare. When you, your family members or friends go to a hospital for a treatment, are you given the same option even for a bill of say $10,000? Maybe not. In Singapore, most of us have some form of insurance. So at least some of our healthcare expenses are covered. Now thinking of this in a bigger Asian picture where most of the countries are developing economies. And the insurance penetration rate is in single digit, not even double digits. So most of the people are left to pay for their healthcare expenses out of pocket by themselves. There's no social medical insurance, there is no private insurance, and there is no other form of support to pay medical expenses. What will this set of people or this segment of people, which is essentially the middle income and the lower middle income segment, do when they are given a healthcare bill? Even like a bill of like $10,000 is huge. $10,000 is like way too huge. They would typically go back to their friends and family, ask loan. They would sell their assets, and in some unfortunate cases they become victims to loan sharks, or they even have to forego the treatment. That's the worst outcome. Allow me to share some numbers with you. According to WHO, about 65 million people globally every year are pushed into poverty only because of healthcare expenses. 75% of patients diagnosed with cancer either face financial catastrophe or die due to untimely treatment within first year of their diagnosis. The numbers speak for themselves. Health financing is a huge problem. And the more we speak about it, the more we are aware. But what can we do? How are we solving this problem using digital technologies, especially FinTech? And in the recent years, FinTech has boomed, and there are innovation at the innovation has disrupted the banking and the financial sector. Offline agents and online combination of mobile wallets has included a larger section of society which was initially underserved. How can we tap into that and make healthcare more accessible and affordable? I'll give you a couple of examples of how we at Access Health treat this or approach this solution. There's no one way of doing it. There are multiple ways, multiple uh, multiple channels can be brought together to do this, but the core 4 areas or verticals we look under FinTech to address the challenge of healthcare are digital savings. Digital savings is where there's an account digitally created where you save your money and save small amount of money every month, every 6 months for your medical expenses. Something very similar to Medisave, where the money in the account is used only for healthcare expenses. But Medisave is only implemented in Singapore, not across different countries. So it's a new form, and private players are coming into the ecosystem to provide digital savings. The other option is medical micro insurance. Typically insurance is very, very complex and very expensive for lower to middle income segment. Now with technology, many players are coming who are providing specific insurance for cancers, but very small insurance coverage. So either say for cancer, for arthritis, for diabetes, depending upon the condition you have. And those insurance products are bite-sized. The cost for those insurance products is low. So booming of these micro insurance products, and because they are using digital platform, they are now able to reach a larger segment of the population. And they have also reduced costs because they do most of their processes digitally, which were initially done manually for such as claims management. The third bucket we look at is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding could be two ways where corporates do donations such as CSR activity for certain segments of the society, or it is crowdfunding platforms such as Millap, which boomed during COVID crisis, especially during the second wave. I'm not sure if most of you know about the second wave, which hit Southeast Asia, and there was a huge demand for oxygen supply. That is when that is when a lot of COVID crowdfunding platform came together. A lot of Indian diaspora came together to support the people in India or neighboring countries where people could not afford for their treatment. And then the last segment is micro investments. And in micro investment is where you invest in certain low risk products and you grow those products for specific targeted medical expenses. So these are various buckets we look at while we bring this solution at the point of delivery. I actually forgot one more. There's one more, which is quite famous. That is digital lending at the point of care, which is quite widespread. And I could give examples further as we discuss of how that is actually supporting high risk patients and emergency patients to get the right treatment they need. But for all these models to work, a lot of stakeholders have to come together, such as fintech providers, health tech providers, healthcare like hospitals, government agencies, regulators. And when we speak to these different stakeholders, one of our major challenge is that they don't understand each other. Health tech does not understand fintech, and fintech does not understand health tech. So at Access Health, we are acting as an catalyst for innovation by bringing the stakeholders together and explaining them the problem statement. We start from there, and then whole host of things have to come. In addition to that, there have to be key enablers such as digital ID for people who want to access these products, a unified digital ID, data system which is transparent, which is safe and secure to transfer data from one ecosystem to another between healthcare and fintech. And regulations. There have to be regulations which enable such products. Currently, the regulations in most of the markets I work actually prohibit existence of such projects. uh, I'll stop here. I've spoken a lot, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask me, and I would be happy to share more over the course of our discussion. Over, back to you, Edward or Kenny. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for the very insightful eye-opener into the world of healthcare accessibility. It was lovely hearing about your experiences. We'll have more to discuss during the panel discussion. Just to inform all participants at this stage, all of you are welcome to ask our speakers questions if you have any, and you can input all of your questions into the Q&A function, and we will be answering them in the Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. Up next, we are delighted to have Mr. Chua joining us today. Mr. Chua has activated numerous best-in-class and award-winning retail experiential projects for brands and retailers across 22 countries in the Asia Pacific. He also co-invented a new smart retail AI tool, Retail ITM, the world's first retail audit tool integrating sight, motion, and pressure sensors in a real-time retail environment. In 2019, he founded another company, Pod Technology, and launched the first self-diagnostic vital signs kiosk in Vietnam. This is how he came to start Pod, a tech company that focuses on unmanned healthcare solutions to bring personal online dockets. Let's hear from Mr. Chua.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kenny, and also thank you forever for organizing this. A big hello to Dr. Lilian Koh and also Dr. Monica, and also welcome all the future innovation talents that's here onto this call. So I'm Chua. I'm going to share with you what we have done in FinTech and also healthcare segment for the last 2 years. Allow me to share my screen. So I founded a company called POD. I personally myself, it's not from the healthcare industry. I spent a good deal of 20 years in marketing, in technology. And how we came about Pod was because of a collaboration with Pfizer, a pharmaceutical company. But more so, it's also being motivated through my experiences, because I've been working outside Singapore for the last 15 years. And I see doctors in Singapore, I see doctors in Shanghai, Hong Kong, Vietnam, all around the world. And I realized that there's something missing in today's healthcare, that we can use technology to bring them together, a better solution and a better experience of most of the patient. Now, as you know, the world is having a big problem. And this problem has been around for the last 20 years, and it's even more obvious in the coming 10 to 20 years. Now, in Hong Kong alone, the number says by the year 2040, 1 in 4 adults will be over 60 years old. And I think the statistic doesn't fall very far in Singapore. And with the aging population that's coming, we have lesser doctors, we have lesser workforce in the healthcare, people are living longer because of a better lifestyle. Now, there is a very big shortage, and this is where the inclusion comes in. Now, today in Singapore, if you are middle class and above, or you are earning good money, you probably can have accessibility to healthcare easily. You can even book yourself into a private hospital, and you get a shorter queue. But there are also a lot of people that are not within this category. You know, how are they able to enjoy the same level of healthcare when they need?
Yes, hi, Mr. Chua. Sorry to interrupt you, but it seems like your slides aren't. I mean the part that you're sharing can't be seen. So will you be able to share the part that you're sharing?
Can you see here?
Can you try again? I can only see your. Yeah, maybe you can try sharing again.
Okay, let me see. Is it okay now?
Oh no, it's still.
Oops, sorry, here.
Oh, I think, yeah, I guess you can just do it this way then.
Okay.
So when you change slides, you can just change it here. All right.
Yeah. Let me see. Is this better?
Oh yes, I can see it now. Thanks so much, Mr. Chua.
Okay, let me stop share again. Hold on. Sorry. Let me try again. Maybe I should just show this screen. It's better, right? I can't go to projection mode, and then things will be different. But if this screen is good enough, I will continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's good enough. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. Yeah,
Okay, no
thanks,
problem.
Mr. Chua.
Okay. Now, a trip, right? For me, when I went to Vietnam. Now, if you can see the picture on the screen, this is the scenario outside Singapore. And I'm very surprised when I went to their public hospital. Now, in Singapore, most of us probably wouldn't wait more than an hour or two when we're going to see a doctor. But the reality is, outside Singapore, people do queue up more than 4 to 7 hours just to see a doctor. So if you just have a common flu and a fever, that is the kind of time you have to wait. And it's not only frustrating, there are also people who are living far away from the hospital and clinic, meaning that they have to travel for about 2 hours in the jam, reach the hospital, they wait for another 4 to 7 hours. That increases the time for them to see a doctor. Now we look at the big numbers, and these are all very shocking numbers in the rest of part of the world. Imagine you only have 1 doctor, right, for every 1,000 people in Indonesia, India, and Africa. So there are a lot of inequality in terms of patient outcome. Now, another point of view is about seeing a doctor. As I mentioned, in Singapore, we don't have this issue, but in China, in other states, you have people who have to travel long distance to clinic in some remote area. Long waiting time, which I mentioned before. And because today we have COVID, and before COVID, we have all the other contagious diseases. You may be there for a tummy ache, but you may be in close proximity with other patients who are suffering from other contagions. Now, if you also have the experience of trying to see a doctor on all the festival, like Christmas, New Year, Chinese New Year, any of these public holidays, you realize that sometimes you are down with fever, but you cannot go and see your GP. You have to go to the hospital A&E. And this is, you would take out another value resources that is already very tight at the hospital. So these are all overstretching hospital limited resources.
Hi, Mr. Chua. Sorry to interrupt you again, but it seems like your slides are still stuck there.
I'm still stuck there.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why. Is it better here?
I think you can just stick to this part. Yeah, then you can just click
Okay.
around. Yeah.
Sorry about
Okay.
that. Yeah. So today, if we really look into technology and also the digital transformation, I think whatever technology that we see today will definitely bring us there to the desired space that we really think that will bring a better solution for everyone. But COVID-19 actually accelerate everything due to travel restriction, due to bottleneck at hospital, due to cross-infection. Now, there are a lot of doctors working in Singapore. They may not be Singaporean. They come from countries like Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and even India. But because of all these travel restrictions, these doctors has went back home and they are unable to come back to Singapore because of this travel restriction. And we see all these numbers staggering in also many cities. So COVID does really accelerate the need for us to go digital. Now, 3 years ago, when we founded the company, when we trying to give ourselves some guiding principle, what are the things that we should include, right? When we build technology and solution for the patient, we focus on the 5 A's. Just now, Dr. Lilian mentioned triangle. It covers the 2 A's about accessibility, about affordability. We actually increased that to 5 A's, and which we think that these are very good guiding principle. First thing, we have to make sure it's available. Availability means it is somewhere within a distance. You are able to reach out to it. You don't need to travel too far. You need not to be rich or taking charity in order for you to get to reach to it. Now, while availability does brings the form in terms of technology availability, physical availability, but it has to be made accessible to the general public. Not only accessible with a high price, how can we bring the cost down through affordability? And then again, the technology and the solution that you may be building, it has to be adaptable. It has to be progressive, able to upgrade, able to integrate with other players in the market. This is where the whole meaning of inclusion comes in. Inclusion is not only taking care of equality between the poor and the rich, it's also bringing people from different fields, bring in beyond the doctors and the nurses, beyond the hospital. It could be medical equipment company. It could be a nutritionist that's coming in. How do you make a technology able to widen the ecosystem whereby you can include everyone in? And lastly, we look into the authenticity. There are many fake drugs out there in other countries whereby you have people who are not qualified, or you have drugs that's overdue, but they're selling at a very low price. How are we able to use authenticity technology to identify? And again, authenticity also comes in the form of AI. How do you use machine learning for them to identify symptoms without the aid of the human being? With the limited time, I shall screen a video for everyone. Let me know whether you can see it. All right. Sorry, I should.
This pod machine indeed is very revolutionary. we do see this as a disruptor for the healthcare community and services. At Pfizer, we are very happy to be part of this initiative, and we hope to see better and more collaboration through different markets in the near future.
So I hope the video is smooth for all of you. If it's not smooth, let Kenny or Edward know. He can share the YouTube link with you, right? And I know there's some crop out words while the video is being played, but I think you get the whole concept. Yeah. Now, the existence for such a device has actually helped to solve the problem, which I mentioned about the bottleneck. There's not enough healthcare workers. So the idea is to use technology, integrate with different sensors and different FinTech, so that it can be made and distributed right outside the traditional channel. But when we look into the traditional channel, if you look at the chart, allow me to explain to you. This is you as a patient. This is the nurses. Now there are a lot of steps along the journey when you come to the clinic, from registration, from the nurse getting a docket, the nurse giving you a queue number, a nurse doing diagnostic on you, getting vital signs, a nurse updating a docket, a nurse filing a docket with the doctors, and then the nurse had to play as a pharmacist to collect the drugs for you. And then at the end of the day, she had to play cashier or even write your MC for you. Now, all in all, we did a measurement. It takes about 20 minutes per patient a nurse have to spend on the one patient itself. Now remember, a nurse also does more than that. Sometimes when the male doctor has a patient, the female nurse actually has to play as another witnesses right in the room, so that there's no complaint from the female patient against a male doctor. So these are the time that is spent. Now we ask ourselves, why does the hospital and the clinic takes more than 4 to 7 hours, right, for any patient just to queue up? And you realize that yourself, when you queue up for 4 to 7 hours, you only see a doctor for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and there you go. Now, when we look at all the root of problem, we realize that there's not enough nurses, there's not enough equipment in the hospital to manage the crowd. So the reason why we invent and put together devices like this, so that it can be used in the traditional channel, like the clinic and the hospital, so that it can remove all the time that is used up by the nurse. But also at the same time, it also can be deployed to the non-traditional channel. Non-traditional channels such as the schools, your neighborhood, your residential, your condos, or offices, shopping mall, train station, because sometimes when you are sick, you don't need to travel, right? All you need to do is just to go into the void deck. You could have such a mobile clinic whereby you can actually have accessibility, right, to the doctors. Now, a lot of people also did ask me what's the difference between our solution with tele-doctors. Now tele-doctors, you are able to see a doctor through your FaceTime or your Zoom call. However, right, the doctors will not have the equipment, right, to diagnose you. So you can give very basic symptom, but you may not let them know about your blood glucose level, your heartbeat, or other more vital data to the doctors itself. We also look into the possibility of creating a hybrid. This is a hybrid whereby you can have a tele-doctors with a real machine diagnostic, but also at the same time use in mobile clinic, whereby you can actually set up, right, all this mobile clinic, right, at high populated area, with also the options of having dispensary for drugs just a few distance away. So you can see a doctor on the screen, and the doctor is able to assign the drug and dispense on the dispensary, like a vending machine. Now, I see on the Q&A, somebody asked, is there any way to miniaturize port so they can be used outside specialized location? That's a very good question. We do have that. In Hong Kong last year, we actually mini-sized the pod into something that's handheld, that we actually can just pass to volunteers or healthcare group to carry with them, and then they bring out to the homes of the elderly who may have difficulty in traveling. Now, I think the key benefit is not about it's not only just about bringing convenience to the user, but I think most importantly, we wanted to reduce the cost. Now a lot of medical screening may cost 100%, right? We're trying to bring the cost to just 10% of the traditional cost, and this is what we aim out to do. So in Hong Kong today, you can have someone going out to your home to do an ECG, blood pressure, blood glucose, uric acid, cholesterol, blood test, and only $9 per screening. So imagine you save in terms of the medical fee, and also you save the trouble of going out of the house and coming back, and also the queuing time. Yeah. So that's about all that I have shared. So passing back to you, Kenny and Edward.
Thank you, Mr. Chua, for the exciting innovation that your company has brought to the world of healthcare. We'll have more to talk about for sure during the panel discussion, along with some other questions that the audiences might have. So, wow, Edward, those were such amazing insights that we've heard from both Dr. Mittal and Mr. Chua.
I absolutely agree with you, Kenny. I was actually quite inspired to learn about how Dr. Mittal is actually using fintech innovation such as crowdfunding and digital lending to bring these healthcare solutions to people. And from Mr. Joe, I was actually in awe about how he's developing and implementing various innovations based on what he has seen and based on the gaps that he has seen in the healthcare system. And I'm actually quite inspired at how much hard work they're putting in to these various solutions to build a sustainable and inclusive future. So without further ado, we'll be moving on to our panel discussion segment. But before that, we'll be taking a short 5 minutes break. So participants can stay on our Zoom, and meanwhile, you can ask various questions that you might have so that we can read off and so that we can give them to our panelists. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our panel discussion. Hope all of you had a great break. So we'll be moving right into our panel discussion, and we'll be starting off with general questions for both of our panelists. So my first question is about inspiration. So we all must have an inspiration for our career, one way or another. What inspired you to pursue a career in fintech and in healthcare?
Okay, thanks, Edward. I guess is I'll go first for this one. Inspiration as a child, I always fantasized about doctors being a doctor, so that was straightforward, kind of, and that's why I went to a medical school, completed my education there. I practiced clinically for a couple of years, and I still remember the days, when patients would come to me with chocolates and gifts just to relieve them of their pain. They would be so happy, and it is one of the most satisfying jobs ever anybody would have done, to be a doctor, to see their patients smile and come back to you telling that they're thankful. While as a doctor, while doing so, I also had the opportunity to work with other hospitals, government hospitals, private hospitals, my colleagues. Then I knew, then there would be pharma representatives, there would be medtech representatives, and we could work with the entire ecosystem in healthcare. And that is where I realized that there is an opportunity to do reach larger section of the society, create a larger impact, and that hence I pursued, wanted to do an MBA by moving into management side of things. That's how I moved from just being a doctor to an management side of healthcare, where we can actually create a larger impact. And to all the participants here, I would say, to be in healthcare, you really don't need to be a doctor. There are many ways you can contribute. I just had I had a fantasy during a childhood to be a doctor, but to contribute, like, Mr. Joe here is not a doctor, but he is contributing so meaningfully in healthcare. So you can contribute in various ways. It could be if you are interested in technology, you can create a technology product. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, you can start up. You can do a you can be a hospital, you can run a hospital, or you can start up something amazing like a service in healthcare. So there is no end to what you can contribute, but yes, you will find what you really love over the by trial and error, I guess.
That was nice hearing from Dr. Mittal. That was a very insightful experience that you have shared with us. So, Mr. Chua, do you have any inspiration to create your own company as well?
I mean, just like Dr. Monica said, right? I think one thing that she said is true. You don't need to be a doctor to be creating innovations for the fintech or in the healthcare segment. I think for me, I think it was just the inconvenience and the frustration that I faced when I was traveling, because I have allergies, I have some symptoms. My doctors in Singapore, they know me well, so they prescribe stuff that fits me. But when I start traveling, when I start going to many parts of the world, I realized that I can't even get home. When people ask me, so what is your symptom before? What is your past medical history? Different time zone, different cities, and I'm able to reach my doctor to say, hey, look, can you just email me all my past medical records, because I need to share with the doctors overseas. No such thing is so difficult. So that type of frustration, brings to me that, what, I think I really need to use whatever available technology that we have today and trying to create a better solution. So this is actually the biggest, I would say the biggest motivation. It is the inconvenience and frustration that got me into here.
Thank you for your input as well. So I'll move on to a more technical kind of question that focuses more on the fintech side of thing. So according to what Dr. Mittal has said, you have said that we have a lot of accessibility problems where people cannot afford healthcare due to the high cost involved, right? Because the traditional healthcare industry model involves a lot of various high cost borne by both the patients and the doctors. So can you give us some examples of these high costs and also show us how does FinTech innovations help reduce these costs?
Thanks, Kenny. It's a very good question. But to be really honest with you, healthcare is complex, and going forward, I don't see in near future or even for a short or mid to long term the healthcare costs coming down, because we have an aging population. There is climate change. There are pandemics, and I don't see healthcare costs coming down. Yes, healthcare has lot of costs. There are costs involved in administration, in running the hospital, getting the supplies, providing the treatment as a service to the patient. There are costs involved to the hospital as well. But the challenge in healthcare is that it is very, very fragmented. There are no standardization. Everybody follows their own processes. They don't use digital technologies. They are still manual on pen and paper. Even for some insurance company, till date they will manage their claims on pen and paper, which are actually authorized by a human being sitting there, which is a cost. Whereas we have technology, which can reduce that cost, the process can be entirely automated. There are digital technologies to automate the entire claims process, so that reduces their cost drastically, which can be then passed on to the customers or the patients as discounts or incentives to manage their health better. There are such examples, but not everybody is using, because the healthcare as an industry is very fragmented. One other example I can give how fintech can bring more efficiency is, example is, if you go today to a local clinic, at least in Singapore, you have some form of digital payment. But in the broader Asian region, no, the penetration is very low. So it is still hard cash you give. So there has to be a person who will take that cash, who will give you a receipt of that cash, and then they will maintain their records, and then there will be an accountant who will come in, who will check, is that correct amount? Are the finances all correct? But if we do it digitally, through fintech, by providing a digital transaction, everything happens digitally. So the time of that person, the nurse or any person who's taking that cash, providing that receipt, that is saved, as even Joe mentioned in his presentation, that all these costs, when there is technology involved and when there is automation done, the time is saved of a human labor, and that time can be utilized for better efficient things. So fintech can definitely bring a lot of efficiencies into healthcare as an ecosystem and reduce their costs.
Yeah, and also to add on also, we know that eventually, right, I think in many countries, a lot of these healthcare costs will be borne by the government, right? Government is expected to take care of the aging population, right? But there's only so much the government can take care. And because of all this aging population, government has to spend a lot more. The only way is to use fintech and also with health tech to make solution, right? So that all patients can be more independent rather than depending on the government to take care of them. Now, right now in Singapore, no matter you have big or small problem, you go to the hospital, there's a big crowd at the hospital. Now, the government is also working on the last mile delivery, last mile wellness, so that they can bring all this healthcare to your doorstep. So I think in the very short future, when we look into 1 year or 2 years, you're going to have last mile healthcare just right outside your doorstep. And look at what they have done during the COVID. The dispensing of these hand sanitizer, the dispensing of the mask, the dispensing of the ART kit. You don't need to travel to the medical center to pick it up, right? There are government bodies or even foundation charity groups that use all this technology to deliver all these so-called medical aids or medical device. So this is one thing. The second thing also, I think that traditional healthcare will change, because if you look at the cost is right now is high because a lot of patients are already going to the later stage of their illnesses. Now I think one of the key focus today is not only on talking about curing. It's go back to the old saying, prevention is better than cure. Now, if we're able to use fintech and healthcare, focusing on preventive healthcare, so that with early screening, with lower cost screening, higher frequency of screening, you don't need to fall so sick or so into the later part of your illnesses. That actually most of the time, medication is actually one of the biggest costs bear by the patients.
Yep, thank you so much, Mr. Chua. And our next question is from Nguyen from NUS High School. And this question is from Mr. Joe Chua.
Yep.
So
I can answer that. I was.
Sure. All right. So he's asking, how do you solve the problem of distribution and the maintenance of equipment? And he says that he knows that there are distributors in countries like Vietnam who monopolize the healthcare equipment market and who cause the equipment prices to become heavily inflated. So this caused the medical service prices to also hike. So how do you think you can balance the cost and build quality to minimize the potential e-waste that comes out of it?
I think this is the answer to that, right? Has many possibilities, but it all boils down to good governance. I give you a perspective in Singapore. We have SingHealth, we have NHG, we have NUSH, right? We have 3 different medical bodies at that time. They engage the pharmaceutical company, the medical companies by their own to procure the medical devices, right? And of course, we know a lot of time they rely on government funding to be able to float their own so-called monthly expenses. Now, one good thing about Singapore government, they know that we have such an issue whereby some supplier will give exclusivity to a certain medical group, and this is where, because they have exclusivity, they're able to bring out the cost of the equipment. But in Singapore, 2 years ago, government formed a independent group called ALPS. You can actually go and Google. It's actually formed by all the 3 stakeholders in SingHealth, NHG, and NUSH to make sure that only one single centralized procuring a method, right, to ensure that we actually get the best cost. So there's no more, first of all, no more cost fixing. Right, and second of all is it actually opens out a wider competition, because now pharmaceutical company or medical devices know that they can't just go individually to all this group. They have to deal with this central group. And not only that, we talk about demand and supply. A lot of times, sometimes costs went up because there's a high demand and there's so little supply. It's also the government job to make sure that we stockpile supplies so that there is no hiking of prices, right, during emergency time. Like last year, when we don't have a stockpile of masks, all the masks can be selling about $1 or $2 per mask. But now today, we're talking about cents. So with good governance, with good law in place, I think such ill practices like what that gentleman mentioned in Vietnam will be overcome. So that's one thing. The second thing that we can solve to make sure the price comes lower is how do we eliminate, right? See, we are in the business of being disruption. How do we eliminate the middleman? Now, right now, you make any medical test, right? You get a blood test for hepatitis or HIV, right? You get the test kit actually from the lab, but you went through intermediate, right, so-called medical centers whereby they draw your blood, they send to the laboratory, they get the result from the laboratory, they fix you up with a doctor, and then they give you a consultation. They will tell you, say, hey, you are negative or you're positive, right? Now, with technology today, with AI, you're able to do diagnosis easily through machine, and machine can actually send you the result. Now, if it's negative, there's no need for you to pay consultation fee to the doctors. But if it's something that's abnormal, this is where you can come back to the doctors, or there is a pool of doctors who can be there to read your report and give you the best advice. This is where inclusion comes in, but we can have an open system, not just monopolized by the medical center. You have to go to that doctor just to see the result. So there are many ways you can lesser cost. I hope that answered his question.
Thank you for your response. Yeah, it definitely answers the question. So thanks so much for your response, Mr. Chua. Before moving on to the next question, just to remind everyone that you're encouraged to ask our speakers questions, as more points will be awarded to your school for the IFTC Learning Festival. So this question will be for Dr. Mittal. So we have pretty much covered a lot of how FinTech can help
make healthcare more inclusive. So I'm just going to shift the focus of the discussion a bit into a more relaxing, personal kind of question, right? So related to your former responses, you have told us that you have worked as an entrepreneur as well as the doctors. So how does your career as both a doctor and as an entrepreneur assist you in your roles as innovation lead at Access Health? And are there any kind of skills that you have integrated into both roles to make your solution more innovative?
Thanks, Kenny, for that question. Yes, it is very helpful for me to be a doctor in my current role because I understand the challenges that doctors face in terms of implementing new projects or new technology in their day-to-day job. And I also understand what patients go through, what are the challenges they feel, and why they are behaving in a certain way, and how technology can help. While understanding these is a good way, but my experience under with startups or and my experience from MBA has taught me the business perspective, and those business value bring lot of has opened my mind to think in different perspectives. So I am able today, I'm like if there's a challenge soon, I can see if that business would be self-sustainable or not. So when we bring projects to life, for example, if I go to a fintech player and say, why don't you design a digital lending solution for patients, for cancer patients? Their first question would be, how do I trust that these patients would pay me back? They have no financial credit score. So I have to work with them to design alternative credit risk scoring mechanism. Fortunately, there are many in the market and I don't have to design, but this is one question we have to address along with the fintech providers. And then their next question would be, how will we find such people? Even if we incorporate alternate credit scoring into our system, how will we find such people and tell them, okay, we are giving you this treatment? So that is where our role comes in. We bring healthcare providers, we talk to them, we tell them that these are the this product will be helpful for not only your patients but also for your healthcare practice, for your practice, because your payments will come upfront. So there is a lot of understanding which has to be built between healthcare providers and fintech providers. And my experience as a startup in startups, which gave me the business understanding, helps me understand their perspective. And I'm fortunate enough to have a very diverse experience and then bring that experience to life to support my current role. I hope this answers your question, Kenny.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mittal. And next, I have a question for actually the both of you. And this is something that will be quite useful to our participants here too. So this question will be, what do you think the future holds for fintech powered healthcare innovations? And oh wait, sorry, my bad. Apologies. This is actually the question. What advice can you give to students who potentially would like to create fintech startups that focus on healthcare?
I can take it first. I think the first step is to be open-minded and also be in the spirit of collaboration. I think Dr. Monica or Dr. Lilian Ko can also acknowledge that. I think if you are long in the healthcare industry, you are not long like me, only spent two years, I got a shock of my life when I entered the healthcare industry. Because I come from marketing and advertising background with all the FMCG big brands, they are very collaborative. Yeah, but in the healthcare space, you'll be realized that no matter even in the hospital itself, they are not collaborative because they are specialists in different area. They tend to be very careful because this is their job to ask questions. So a lot of good ideas with good reasoning, right? Why this idea exists in the first place. But you have to go in with the open mind because you will be asked, you will be challenged. you'll be tested. They may not be in the collaborative spirit at the beginning, but you have to have that the patience to last it through. So this is one thing that I learned. And also second thing is look beyond Singapore, because if we look at Singapore today, our government really takes good care of us. If I'm sick, I just cross the road, 5 minutes, I get my medicine. Maybe the clinic is actually empty most of the time. But if you want to go into health tech, you want to FinTech, you can go think and look beyond Singapore. Lastly is don't create technology for the sake of being innovative, right? Last year, I think we have some technology news that I saw on China News Asia. Somebody in some institution invented a robot that do swabbing to your nose using a robot, but not using your hands. Now, I don't mean to steal the credit from this guy. I think it is innovative, but it may not be the necessity that we need to solve. So sometimes it may be an innovative news. Yes, it's on the news, but if you look at it, does it really benefit the greater mass? Or how does such a technology can evolve to something different later or useful later? I think this is something that as young students, you need to put that in your mind. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for your response, Mr. Chua. Is there anything that you want to add on, Dr. Mittal?
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. And I totally align with what Joe mentioned just now. It is very important to know that you're solving the right problem. Just don't solve it for the sake of it. And most often, they're not always, but most often, startups think they're solving for the world hunger. I am trying to say they think that their solution is the best. There is no other solution equivalent. But be open to learning. Like what we are doing today in fintech and health tech is just scratching the surface. There are millions of people who do not have access to even banking services yet. Imagine if we reach the unbanked population and underserved population, how much access we are going to create for healthcare. And there are many questions to solve. There are questions about data transparency, cybersecurity. There are questions about usage. There are questions about standardization, regulation, policies, you name it, and there are challenges. Healthcare is very, very complex. But one thing, if you have to remember, is you have to be open to learning. When I was in medical school, one of my professors told me very early, your mind cannot, your eyes cannot see what your mind does not know. Only when your mind knows certain thing, you will be able to appreciate that and you will be able to address that. So be open to learning. Never stop learning. It's not that you are in an institution and you are learning. No, it is a lifelong journey.
Wow, and thanks for both of the responses. We have learned a lot of tips and tricks from both the professionals here, and I'm sure that our participants will be grateful for all of these tips if they start to, create a fintech startup in the future, right? So moving on to the next question, we have this question from EJC Elmer. The question is, besides the greater access to healthcare related data that fintech can bring, what are some other aspects of healthcare that you feel that fintech will continue to impact and even improve?
Yeah, I can, if that's okay, I can take that. Um, so yes, it creates, fintech is creating a lot of access to healthcare. That is true. If we have to look what are the other aspects, I'll say look at it more from a patient and a provider perspective. From a provider perspective, if you have digital transactions, you could create your own credit score so that the provider, for example, now if I have to say it in simple words, if you're running a hospital, you need equipments to run that hospital, you need supplies to provide your services. So if you have digital transactions, you can get credit, you can get discounted credit from banks or legitimate organization, or there are fintech organizations who are now able to provide lower interest rate loans to healthcare providers, for the insurance checks. For example, if even if I'm covered under insurance in certain geographies, the the time for the hospital to get that insurance money is 60 days. Even in Singapore, if you go, you're covered under insurance and it is cashless for you, the hospital will be paid by insurance in another 45 to 60 days. So the hospital has to manage their cash flows for next 45 to 60 days by themselves. So there are solutions in the market who are actually giving upfront payment to the providers and then take the payment from insurance companies after 45 days. So there are solutions in the market, fintech solutions, who are actually supporting providers to so that they can run their hospitals more efficiently. While doing so, while bringing these digital transformations into the healthcare ecosystem, fintech is actually standardizing and bringing more efficiency in the process. And that is leading to lowering the cost for healthcare providers. And once their costs are lowered, they will be able to pass it on this to patients. So I think there are multifold layers, and we are yet to understand how much more benefit fintech can bring to healthcare.
And also I may add also in the field of insurance also. I think one of the biggest user for fintech in healthcare will be the insurance segment, because they collect a premium from you, right? You pay on a monthly basis until you reach a point whereby you need the insurance to cover you. But I think insurance company can use fintech, right, to really monitor and incentivize their customers. For instance, you realize that usually after you have an insurance payout, your premium will increase because you are higher risk to the insurance company, right? They're not going to let you pay $10 a month. After the risks happen, you pay $100 a month. Now with fintech, with all these health app that they have, what the insurance company can do is to actually use that to monitor your health, encourage you to be more active, or do more screening for you, so that it's a two-way traffic, right? The more they know about you, the safer they feel about increasing your premium. So if you are still healthy and your vitality signs is strong, they could actually give you incentive. You need not to pay $10 a month. You can only pay $1 a month. So it's a win-win for actually both the insurance company and yourself. So this is one way beyond data, how other players in the market can use this to connect with the user.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chua. And I have another question from Yifei from River Valley High School. Her question is for Dr. Mittal, but Mr. Chua, you can add on if you wish to. So Dr. Mittal mentioned that fintech has provided a lot of solutions, such as digital savings, medical insurance, crowdfunding, and digital lending. And she's asking you to explain more on how crowdfunding and digital lending can help people who are facing financial difficulties to use these solutions to gain access to the funding that they need for their treatments.
Yeah, sure. It's actually a very good question. Maybe let me start with digital lending. So there's a company, I'll give you an example that will make it more clear. There's a company called Arogya Finance in India. It's based in India, and it has offices across multiple cities. They provide 0% interest lending to the patient. That means if the treatment is for say 10,000 Indian INR, the patient will be paying 10,000 INR, but in a time span of 6 months to 3 years to the company, to Arogya Finance. And Arogya Finance as an institution would be then paying that upfront cost to the hospital for the treatment so that patient can access that treatment. One example of a project which we launched with them was for cancer treatment. Now, let me walk you through the patient journey. A patient is diagnosed with cancer. She is 45-year-old female. She has breast cancer, and her son works as a clerk in a local school. So he doesn't earn as much. And they don't know much about which are the cancer treatment centers in the locality. There's a big hospital, so they go directly to that hospital. And the hospital is very expensive. It will cost him only 30 to 50,000 INR only for diagnostics. Forget treatment. Treatment is not even covered. and he has an insurance for say 25,000 INR, then what will he do? In such, we have a partnership with a platform called Decode. It essentially identifies hospitals which is smaller hospitals, say 30 bedder or 50 bedder hospitals, but which are well equipped to provide cancer treatment such as radiation and chemotherapy, and they do have oncologists visiting them. The cost of such hospitals are at half the price or even one-fourth the price of the big hospitals. So, and the only challenge with this hospital is they don't have any online presence. The platform Decode provides an online presence. So now that user is diverted, uh, looks, checks online, which are the hospitals which provide services, and then he's directed to Decode, and the Decode team then directs him to one of our cheaper hospitals, yet good quality care. Now he still does not have money to access the treatment, and that is where the Arogya Finance and Decode partnership comes into picture, where Decode then guides him to the Arogya Finance team. Arogya Finance team will run a psychometric test to predict if this individual will be able to is really willing to pay him back, because he does not have any financial credit risk or credit score. So they run a psychometric test. Based on those results, they give him approve a loan, and that loan is 0%. There is no charge for him. He just has to pay the money back in next 6 months to 3 years. And this partnership is not between Decode and Arogya Finance, but it is also with the hospital. So the payment directly goes to the hospital. That way, the Arogya Finance team can actually reduce their risks of default. This is one model which we have seen work, and it is working very well. And now Arogya Finance team has established partnership with more than 600 hospitals in India, where they identify lower income segment people through doctors and through providers to support them in their treatment journey. And it is just not limited to cancer, but other forms of treatment such as fractures and you name it. And I think they have most of those services. That's how digital lending works. And we hope that that way it continues. The other question you asked about was crowdfunding. How does these platform work? I am not able to recall name of the right crowdfunding platform, but during COVID crisis, at least in April and March 2021, there was this absolutely horrible second wave in India where people were actually dying. And then there was a wave in Indonesia similar to that, due to lack of oxygen. They were not in, and the costs for people to get inside the hospital shoot sky high. They did not have access. So many institutions came together. There were charity donations from everyone. There were, many people, many organizations set up oxygen cylinder camps so people can go and get access to those oxygen cylinders. But there were also institution people who could not afford to go to hospitals. So crowdfunding platforms, for example, I can remember Milap, but there are others as well. I can't remember their names right now. I should be able to write it in chat in some time. The crowdfunding platform is where the user can go. Like if I am a low income person, I can go on that crowdfunding platform and raise a request to them on their platform that I am suffering from so and so condition and I need so and so money. And these crowdfunding platform then do have connections in different diasporas, and they through Facebook channels, through different social media channels, and then they reach to these diaspora, and then people start contributing to those cause to which they connect. And once you have collected enough money for your cause or for your treatment, then you use that money for your payment. And in this system, the platform there are many platforms who do not even charge money for using that platform. As a user, I do not have to pay a single penny to the platform. It comes at zero fees to me. Similarly, it comes at zero fees to the one who's a donor. and they get to know how the money was utilized. They bring a transparency in the system, so they know that the money they are donating is going for the right cause and it is not being utilized for unnecessary or unintended unintended ways. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for the comprehensive elaboration on the different fintech instruments that we can use in the healthcare industry. I'm pretty sure that that would definitely answer some of the questions that we have as well. So right now we have time for one last question before we wrap up this very interesting and insightful panel discussion. So I would like to angle a bit more on the health tech and the developing society nowadays, right? So typically, the access to digital healthcare services usually involves the usage of technology and hardware, such as through applications and websites. So the question is, how would rural citizens living below the poverty line be able to access digital healthcare if they cannot afford to purchase the hardware, such as mobile phones or laptops?
If you look at the port solutions, right, we don't need them to use their own hardware. It can't. But also, I think the key question is I'm a strong advocate for not healthcare, but more on general wellness. Preventive wellness is actually something that I think is the biggest application before we even reach to the point whereby we are aging and we are in the elderly. We should use all this innovation, right, to do better early screening, cheaper screening, so that it increases, right, the frequency of tests. So I think these are the key. And with all this data that you collect, right, overall, you are able to give all this aggregated data to the government of the world, right? Maybe we know that the society is getting more, more and more people become diabetic in the country. So the government can spend ample time to create programs to make sure that they don't reach the point. Because as a society age and a society have serious health problem, it takes a lot and draw a lot of resources from the government. So I think if we look into the discussion that we have today, sometimes technology cannot be placed there just to save the fire. We cannot create innovation, just keep on firefighting. We have to create, right, a new type of behavior that we have today. How many times have you guys have your own health screening? Of course, you are the young one, right? Below 20s. It will not occur to your mind until you reach the 30s, when you start to have knee problem, you have all these issues, right? But again, we believe that if we are able to bring all these affordability, accessibility high, using machine, like what you mentioned, the people below the poverty line, they are given the equal chance to diagnose themselves, right? So that all the remedy can come much earlier.
If I may add to that, like Joe has very rightly said that we cannot do firefighting. We have to also focus a lot on prevention. I would like to add that smartphones have become actually very, very cheap. In India, you will find at least in lower income countries, you will find everybody carrying some form of phone, either a feature phone or a smartphone. Not not necessarily they will have an iPad, or they will have you know mm, Windows or Macs for them, but they will definitely have a phone. The penetration of phones have exceeded, like, at least 70-80% in developing economies, and that provides an opportunity for technology. And it is not necessary that all the apps today are internet based. There are a lot of apps which are offline apps, and I do know myself startups who are providing offline apps which can work on feature phones, which improve accessibility. And they also hire community agents who go in rural areas and take that medical device along with them, measure those details, and then directly enter it into the app. So I know that there has been innovation going on at that front as well. So people are actually not spending on unnecessarily on the devices which they actually don't need. if that answers your question. And if it is okay, Kenny, there's a question to my earlier answer of about how majority of crowdfunding people who do not receive sufficient funds. Yes, that's a major drawback on crowdfunding platform, that not everybody receives sufficient funds or not everybody's post goes viral to support. That is, and that's why it's one of the unreliable technologies to support healthcare costs. But in times of crisis, it worked well. So not always, but in certain situations, it can work well. And what was the other question? Is there a way to healthcare more affordable to people in deep poverty who cannot afford? Yes, that's why the people who cannot afford insurance, for them, that's why we are making solutions such as digital savings or micro investments, or even digital lending is essentially comes free to the user. Uh, People who are really below poverty line, for them I think there are governments who come into picture and provide free insurance, free treatment. But for people, it is actually the missing middle who are slightly above the poverty line. They do not get any subsidies from the government, they are left on their own. And if they come across any catastrophic healthcare event, then they are the ones who actually face more financial burden, because the very poor in the society are typically covered by some form of medical insurance through government or free medical services.
Thank you so much for answering the questions. Mr. Chua, Dr. Monica Mittal, and Dr. Lilian Ko. This has been a very informative session, and I believe that all of us here have learned a lot from both of our panels. Thanks everyone again for participating in this FinTech and Healthcare panel discussion. We hope that today's session has inspired you to continue your learning journey in FinTech and how to make it more inclusive and sustainable to everyone.
Before we end today, we would like to ask for your feedback in order to improve further iterations of the IFTC panel discussions. Please refer to the slides for the details for the QR code. To reward our participants who are here today, 4 participants who walk away with $10 worth of Starbucks gift cards. Do check out our Instagram page at iftc.sg, where we are going to announce the participants who won our giveaway.
Do join us at our Inter-School Learning Festival, where you will learn more about the major role FinTech can play in helping us build a sustainable and inclusive future. The Learning Festival consists of bite-sized videos, quizzes, and study guides that you can check out to increase your knowledge about various aspects of FinTech. You can check out our Instagram page and our YouTube channel for our videos and exciting giveaways with prizes worth more than $600 in total. Also, check out our diverse set of learning resources at sgfintech.org.
For our challenge problem participants, look out for an email with our challenge problem on the 7th of February. Also, for the rest of us, look forward to another exciting panel discussion on Green FinTech next week on the 28th of January from 3 to 5 p.m. We are going to have 4 experts in our panel who will be discussing how FinTech can be used to build a sustainable and inclusive future, and to also power up innovations that can help us do so. Thank you and have a good evening.